You were a teacher. Did you have the old inspector sitting at the back of your class?
No, not quite as such, but I did have a funny story when Aero came to Hamilton Boys. And I won't name the deputy principal involved, but I was sitting at the back of an assembly with the Aero officer I knew through sort of athletics. And he just wandered into this assembly, and the deputy principal came out, looked down the back and saw him and said, actually, this isn't the assembly that we prepared for you. Which I just thought was the funniest thing. You know, it's exactly like your man not writing on the board. Hey, we're going to do an experiment today. So the assembly the next day was quite a bit different.
They would ask, though, as I also remember, they would ask to see your books. So I can remember I must have been in social studies or something like that, and this inspector came out and said, can I see your book, please? And he'd take the book, and I'd go, I can't write anything, and he'd go and look through it and then give it back to me. I remember the social studies teacher saying, oh, thank God he chose you, Lords. And sort of fear on the eyes. You can see the white of the eyes of the social studies teachers. Oh, who's he going to choose? But do they still do that or not?
To some extent, but they tend to go through cycles, and I don't know who particularly gives them guidance, but for a while it was very much about kind of administrative compliance. Effectively, have you tick this box, and they wouldn't spend much time in the classroom. And you're right, I think a lot of the reports have become insipid and not really looked at the performance of the outcomes of the students. You know, how actually are the students doing in the school, which has to be a key component.
Which brings us very neatly and segue into our next issue. But just before we go on to that, I can't segue immediately because I want to go on a bit further. If 5-year-olds have got poor oral language skills, according to the Education Review Office, and they're attributing that to the COVID-19 pandemic and excessive screen time, how do you stop that? I mean, COVID's over now. Is it going to correct itself or what?
Well, no, I don't think so. And in terms of who you appoint to the Secretary for Education's job, I have applied. I don't think I have much more than a bolter's chance. But I don't think they need another bureaucrat. And they need someone who can visualise change. So that will be an interesting process if I get any way through it. I think the worst thing that's immediately come out of the release of this report is that, like every government, the current government thinks that they can only change things through their active mechanisms. So people have immediately gone at the ECEs and said, hey, this is your responsibility. And it isn't. Sometimes what a government has to do is facilitate change by providing information, etc. So in this case, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of parents who do not know how to parent. And, you know, for people who have maybe seen good role models or grown up in good homes, you know that you talk to your kids. You know that you put posters up all around their room. You know that you read to them, you know, as much as possible. If not every night, then darn close to it. You know that you go out and you charge around and you laugh, and you know when you go around the supermarket that you look at prices, you're talking constantly with kids. This is a parent's responsibility, and it's, again, something that I've advocated a few times. I mean, we desperately need in New Zealand a crown entity for parenting, not one that is interventionist, but one that just makes sure that every single parent in New Zealand, or prospective, when they're pregnant, don't drink. All of these things, that it's absolutely pervasive, that everyone knows, and that we pride ourselves in our parenting. Schools and ECEs cannot fix this.
No, and and maybe that was the point of the Aero report at the end of the day, that if I'm a new entrant teacher and I'm dealing with kids who can't even talk coherently, let alone know what a book looks like, then, and in fact, that's what teachers are saying. They're saying that in all their time in teaching, they've never seen it as bad as it is now. That's the common refrain through the Aero report. There's nothing teachers can do about that, surely, is there? Is there anything that teachers can do about that, really?
No, really difficult. And even just think about that in terms of the hours per day they have available to them. So, I'm guessing that most kids, probably the average at ECE, and there's a lot of kids who don't go to ECE, but they might have 3 or 4 days. And the ECE teacher will do their best. Once they get to primary school, you tend to start a bit easier, so you've got maybe 5 hours. Well, again, you're in a class of 30. How much individual one-on-one language are you going to get? This problem has to be solved in the home. And if a child arrives at school, let's say at 5, and this report made it sound like a lot of them were being brought up by wolves, barely grunting.
Yes, that's right.
That in that situation, the school has to go back to the parent, and they're going to do themselves a favour by having parenting classes in the school. And again, that could be something where this Crown Entity for Parenting has external providers who can provide through that mechanism and say, guys, you've got to talk to your kids. And you've got to talk
I think you could. The kind of people, though, that needs to have that lesson, to be honest with you, are the kind of people who won't listen to you. So I can't.
I'm not sure of that, Michael.
Oh, you see, I think. Alwyn, you're being too kind. The wrong people are having children. But
I think it's a much smaller proportion than you think. And as I've said before, I've never met a parent who doesn't love their kids. A lot of them don't know how to, and that's genuine. They've never seen it. And it can appear really low level. I know this is Michael Law's uncensored, so I can swear. But I was in the supermarket in Cambridge a couple of months ago, and there's a kid walking around, nice kid, he wasn't doing anything naughty, and his mother just yells at him, "Get back here, you little shit." And I thought, far out, this is in public. What's that kid getting at home? And it's. I know people will be really defeatist, and I know you're not being defeatist, but they'll say, well, we can't solve this problem. Well, we can't solve it through our schools and ECEs. The only hope of solving it is through parenting.
No, I think that's fair enough, but by God, you've bitten off. We don't have a minister for parenting, as you say, or a ministry of, and we are. Rangatamariki is there for when things goes to crap. Basically, it's not there to try.
So you're not talking about that.
Trying to stop anything.
But we've had a ministry for women affairs. We've had a ministry for Māori affairs.
Aren't they doing a wonderful job though? Yeah, but aren't they doing a wonderful job? Isn't the Ministry for Māori Affairs doing a fantastic job?
How you define this is going to be crucial, but it has to be a part of what we do.
Yeah, but the other thing that comes out of this too, putting COVID to one side, and is without doubt, it's to do with electronic devices, and it's
that's a big part too. Yep.
Yeah, and we are now starting to reap the consequences of this massive technological revolution that we've had, and the dumbing down, essentially, of our kids as a consequence. And that's not just something in New Zealand, that's throughout the entire world. But in the meantime, we can say to kids, well, you limit your kids, but you should be able to limit your 4-year-old on the device or whatever. But in the past, though, surely lots of parents parented by just plonking their kid in front of the television, didn't they? So why should devices make any difference? they just put them in front of the cartoons and said, off you go, kids.
Yeah, I guess they're more pervasive. I was sitting in a restaurant the other night having a lovely meal, and the couple next to us had probably a 6-year-old. So the 6-year-old had the father's phone for the entire meal. Well,
it's a calming device. Yeah, I know. But then I wouldn't take a 6-year-old to a restaurant, but there you go.
No, but it's also, a situation. So all of those people who, get really up in arms about equity and all of this sort of stuff, well, challenge it at this lower level, because a parent who has thought all this stuff through and is probably well educated themselves, they're going to be really restrictive on devices. We never even had PlayStation in our home for our kids. Hardly ever watched TV. They were limited to half an hour on a device a day, and 2 of them wouldn't even take that. And so our kids are great academically. They've got great careers and futures. So all these people who are worried about equity for people in their 20s and 30s actually have a look back at what's happening 0 to 5, because that's what's causing it.